Hey guys, how's everyone doing today? Yes, this conversation is probably going to be one that some people are going to take very personal, and I just want to say up front, without having any confusion, everything you're about to hear me say is just my opinion. I am by no means a master expert in this topic. I don't have 10 years of researching the facts and data. I'm giving you my opinion based on what I was able to find when I did do some research and looking up some information and just kind of getting a feel for what I think categorizes a bushcraft style knife. I think the reason that I'm putting this video out right now is because I've seen a few videos out there where people are saying, buy my bushcraft knife, or here's my bushcraft knife. And that's all well and good. In fact, I don't have any issue with what people categorize a bushcraft knife or a camp knife. My choice, my option is to delineate between what I would call a bushcraft style knife over what I would call a camp style knife. Now, they're not too dissimilar in size, right? I actually think this is a bit large for a bushcraft knife, but let me explain. I notice a lot of people out there, like I said a minute ago, saying bushcraft knife, and I think they use it because it's a buzzword. In fact, I know some people out there that have their, shops, and they just throw bushcraft in front of whatever it is they're talking about because they know it's a hot topic. It's going to come up in a Google search. People are going to find it, and people are going to go to them and say, "Ooh, this isn't a tarp; it's a bushcraft tarp." No, it's a freaking tarp. You can use it for anything. It's a tarp. So just calling it a bushcraft tarp doesn't give it any magical properties. It's just it's a tarp. Same thing with a knife. I know that there are a lot of hardcore opinions on knives, and I'm going to tell you what mine is right now. Mine's very simple. It's very straightforward. I look at a bushcraft style knife as a bit of a smaller knife, something smaller, manageable, easy to carry, easy to do tasks from one side of the spectrum all the way to the other side of the spectrum. But what's on that spectrum? You've got fine, minute, detailed tasks on one side, and then on the other, you've got heavy-duty, burly tasks that you're going to want to perform, and all points in between. A bushcraft-style knife should be able to accomplish all of those tasks, and should be able to do so fairly well. A camp-style knife, in my opinion, is when you start getting a little bit larger. The blade geometry changes just slightly, and it gets a little bit bigger, and it's a little bit limiting on some of those smaller tasks. Now, does that mean people who say, I have a bushcraft knife, are lying when they hold it up? Absolutely not. Mainly because, first of all, this is just my opinion, and that's all it is my opinion. You have to look at it from a different point of view. When you're dealing with when you're dealing with knives, period, you can take a knife and use it for just about anything. And using that knife for various tasks is what makes a good bushcraft knife a good bushcraft knife. Being able to do small, minute detail carvings and whittling and that type of thing is definitely something that you would expect to be able to do from a bushcraft knife. Also, you'd want to be able to process some types of wood. Now, I know a lot of people out there are jumping out of their seats going, you never process wood, you don't baton wood with a knife, that's stupid, that's ridiculous to do to a knife. Right tool for the right job. I agree halfway. I agree when you say the right tool for the job. I say that a lot, but I do it under this umbrella of logic. Basically, the right tool for the job to me means I'm never going to bring a pencil to a sword fight. I think people underestimate the power of knives today as what we had 10, 20, 30 years ago, for example. The steels are far superior today than they were back then. And I could sit here and go on and on about how it's not abuse to a knife to take a knife and be able to baton through a reasonably... It's not abuse to be able to take a knife and be able to baton through a piece of wood. It's not abuse. It may have been 30 years ago because the steels were completely different, but we're not in that world anymore. And whether we like it or not, no matter how traditional we may want to be and may want to act, you can't help the chemistry of how things have changed. It's just some things do evolve, and I dare say that if people 100 years ago had knives of the quality that we're able to make today, they would lean more towards a one-tool option than they did in the back, simply just for traveling light. Now, I could sit here and go on, but a very well-known knife maker actually did a vlog, and I'm going to put that, I'm sorry, I think it was just a blog, I don't know if it was a video on it, but he he covers it in detail, Turley, and I'll put that link down below if I can find it, where he actually outlines this logic. And I don't want to turn this video into that logic. I'm just simply trying to illustrate a point of what I find to be desirable traits in a bushcraft knife. And again, it just falls on that spectrum. Light, minute detail tasks, all the way up to heavy, hardcore camp tasks. So where does that line go between what a camp style knife is and what a bushcraft style knife is? To me, it's all about the geometry of the blade. You can look at these two blades, and they're not that dissimilar, but then again, they are a little bit. This one is a lot thinner, and it's a little bit shorter. This one's quite a bit thicker and more robust. I would not expect to be able to do much in the way of a lot of detail carving with this knife as I would with this, simply because I've got that shallower point at the end that allows me to really get in and hold the knife and really do a lot more detail work. Again, it's the main reasons that surgeons use scalpels and not swords when they're performing brain surgery and other detailed tasks like that. So this knife is still small enough that I'm comfortable calling it a bushcraft style knife, but it is starting to get a little bit big, which is why I include the camp knife in it as well, because it is a little bit larger. On that note, I definitely see individuals whose knives are much, much larger than this that they're calling bushcraft knives, and they're saying that they're bushcraft knives. I can't say whether that is a lie or whether it's the truth, because again, I'm no expert in the field. I can tell you my opinion is I don't view those larger knives as bushcraft knives. Now, there are people, a lot of vendors out there, knife makers, who go out of their way, and you can watch their videos and you can see it on their websites, that will say, I have this knife I have this knife and it is this dimension, it is this size, it's great for bushcrafting. That is 100% truth, because it can be great for bushcrafting. That doesn't make it a bushcraft knife, and that's why they use the term great for bushcrafting. At least that's how I feel it. There are people out there that have these knives that fall short of becoming a freaking machete in some cases, but they call them, this is my bushcraft knife, this is my bushcraft knife. And these makers and sellers of those types of knife, in my opinion, are just throwing out the buzzword bushcraft because they want it to show up in a Google search. I could be wrong. Maybe a samurai sword is a bushcraft knife and I'm just way off base. I haven't seen evidence to point to that, so I still feel like my point of view is valid to have. Again, I still say it is only my point of view. It is not fact. I'm not expecting the entire bushcraft community and camp community to bow down to what I'm saying. I'm just telling you, when you hear me use terminology that may make you raise an eyebrow and going, why is he calling it this, or why is he calling it that? This video is simply meant to explain to you. When I say that this is a camp style bushcraft knife, you need to understand that I think this knife is starting to get a bit large to be dedicated for bushcrafting only, and to say that it's specifically a bushcraft knife and only a bushcraft knife, I think would be a little bit misleading. Because to be honest with you, that's a hefty knife to be called a bushcraft knife, in my opinion. This one is definitely encroaching into the bushcraft style knife. It's much smaller, much finer, lighter to carry. I mean, this is very manageable, very wieldy, and very small. And I like this knife, and that's why this is my EDC. I carry this everywhere. It's the first one I made of that size and of that style, and I was tickled to death when I finished it. I fell in love with it, and it is truly my favorite knife, and you can tell by the number of scratches. I gotta polish this thing back up again. It's getting messed up. So anyway, guys, I don't want to go on and on. I really want to hear your opinions. What do you consider to be a bushcraft knife over any other type of knife? What qualifications must that knife meet in order to be called a bushcraft knife? Not a knife that's good for bushcrafting. If I'm going to call it a bushcraft knife, what are your expectations?